Good afternoon, everybody. We are very glad that you're here and with us and eating delicious food from Tres Robles Farms and local foods. I hope you enjoy it. Once you are done eating, we would love for you to visit our two student display areas. So over to the left, we have, or my left, we have our Maker to Market program. And then to my right, we have our Life Launch program. So when you're finished, please go and talk to the students, ask them lots of questions. They are ready to explain what they're doing and the products that they've made. Thanks. Hello and welcome to the Equitable Innovation Conference. We are going to get started in just a few minutes. If you are sitting over at these tables over there, we ask that you come join us in the seats so you can get a better view of what's going on. And if you haven't had a chance to go grab lunch, there's lunch right through these doors to my left. So get some food, get comfortable, and we'll start in just a few minutes. Thank you.
major institute for providing partnership in the urban manufacturing market. So I want to thank you for listening to me. We also want to thank United Way for this spectacular building. They've been here for a lot of organizations opening up for them, and we appreciate that. We also love to thank United Way. Take it to that global. Before I call up our speakers, I want to call on the executive change to the changing schedule. Mr. Emil Cameron, who's been able to be with us today. And we want to thank our friends and thoughts that were up to him. I know we were all looking forward to seeing him. So we need help to bring him back in the next time. I was very satisfied with what he was in Chicago. If you don't know, you can look him up online and go from there. You will find the adjusted schedule in your accountant's bulletin. Also now, I want to bring up my good friend. I've been known him for a while. I said earlier. He's the founder of Whole House Foundation for Kids. He wants to give a little overview of the conference. This is a great guy. Kids put the school together. Really, awesome. Yeah, very awesome. Family man who loves his kids. He's also takes him to basketball. But he's a good guy. And the city people love him. He's helped out with HIV. He's helped out with other nonprofits like the city. He was taking this for the church.
Today. There are times that we go to meetings, that we go to things that you can feel we're doing something important. I want you to look inside of you today and know we're talking about something here that can change our community, that can change our business community, our nation, and most importantly, our kids of our community. And that's really the perspective that I come here all about. See, it wasn't long ago that America was truly the land of opportunity. We were creators, inventors, manufacturers, builders, tinkerers, inventors, scientists. We worked hard. We had strong family units. And we taught our children by example on how they should live their lives and grow. We were a people of immigrants, of skilled workers, of great thinkers, and those people that did nothing more than simply put in an honest day's work for an honest day wage. That was America, and that was the American dream. If you work hard, you can get ahead. Is that where we are today? Well, some of you in this room, and Jerry, you said many beautiful things, thank you, know who I am. Most of you don't. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started and grown a number of pretty successful high-tech computer technology companies. One we sold to Hewlett-Packard, one we sold to Sprint, and I have participated in and achieved, by any measure, what you would call the American dream. So I said, well, what am I going to do next? And I started looking around this country about what is it that we're doing right, what are we doing wrong, and what is it that we can do to invest so that the next generation of America will be better off than this generation. Because sadly, that's not the direction we're really headed right now. So I started an organization called the Holt House Foundation for Kids, and then specifically a program called Lemonade Day. And what Lemonade Day is, and I don't know if Sarah's still in here, but she was involved in, there are lots of people involved. I mean, today we're in 14 different countries, we're in 70 different cities in the U.S., and you know, way over 1 million kids have been involved in Lemonade Day. And what do? We teach them how to take ownership of their own lives. We teach them how to set goals, make plans, work those plans, and ultimately achieve their dreams. And we do that with a lemonade stand. Well, what we have going on in this room is Lemonade Day on steroids. Not all of us can run lemonade stands, but all of us have greatness inside of us. Not the same greatness. Maybe you're good at math, or maybe you suck at spelling like I do. Maybe you're good at athletics, or great at art, or whatever it is, but we've all been given these great talents that we can pass on. And the thing that has always made America great is that we made stuff, we invented stuff, and we built stuff. Sadly, over the last 20 years, we've had this crazy notion that every one of our kids shouldn't be going off and building things. They should go to college so that they can rack up a whole bunch of student debt. They can come out and become baristas at Starbucks. Well, I'm not sure that's our best plan. There are folks that are so amazing with their hands that they can build and create things that most of us would never think about. We need that as a country. We need that in our city. And that's why I'm here today, to try and figure out how I can help TXRX and all of you in this room give this gift to our kids. Help teach them how to create and build new things and build the companies and enterprises that is going to take our country well beyond. You know, we've got a whole bunch of other countries that have or are working really hard to get what we have. Whether that's China, whether that's India, whether that's Mexico or Pakistan, or you name it. They love learning how we did it, and they're busting their butts to figure out how to outproduce us. Well, let's not let them do that. Let's teach our kids how to make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate that, especially your work with Lemonade Day. You know, I got an opportunity to go out and be a judge and sample, and those kids make some great lemonade. They do. Actually, that's one of the first time I met Michael when United was Continental, and they did a story on Lemonade Day, and didn't know my son was going to be on the front cover with Michael. He had this big bushy afro, and it was right next to Michael, and so now every time he sees him at school, he goes and makes fun of him because they had a couple of jokes together that day. But again, we appreciate the drive. The seeds being sown to this kids' lives, for them to understand that, you know, this is where work begins, and how they're partnering with different businesses so they can understand how to put a business plan together, pay their investor back, and move forward. And so, thank you. Our next person that we're going to bring up, she's a freshman on council, my colleague, Amanda Edwards. She's working hard in the city. We've been working with the Innovation District, Innovation Hub, bringing she's now the youngest council member. I was the youngest council member, but now she's the youngest. So I didn't get the task of doing that. I have to do the job programs, because I'm a little bit older, but she's the younger one. So the mayor said, hey, why don't you go and you have a better understanding of what's going on out there. This is killing me to say this, but I'm going to just keep saying it. And she's out there doing a great job. We appreciate you. You are representing body, council body well, bringing people to the table, looking at what's coming to the city, how we need to brace ourselves and position ourselves to be ready to be the next and the best innovative city out there. We all know that we didn't do well with Amazon headquarters too, but we're going to be ready next time for the next company. But more importantly, we're going to work with what we have here. I want to thank you for all your efforts. Come on up, say a few words.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Pro Tem Davis. He makes me call him that all the time, by the way. I have to respect my elders, right? I'm teasing. No, it's really been a joy and pleasure to serve on council and to be a part of what I really believe to be a renaissance in our city. With efforts just like these, TXRX leading the way with Makerspace and really connecting and breaking down some of the silos, this is really going to be the future of the city, this city's viability and ability to be a leader in growing our economy in a city of the future. It's been my great pleasure, as Councilmember Davis has highlighted. I led the Mayor's Task Force for Technology and Innovation. I now sit on the Houston Exponential Board, which are driving some of those implementation of some of those strategies and ideas of how do we make Houston a more robust center for innovation in our city. And when we talk about innovation, it is so important that we are talking about that from a variety of spectrums. So looking at how we innovate, not only in terms of data science, but also innovate in terms of how we make and build things and making sure that we're connecting those pieces together. And so when I got the opportunity to tour TXRX, I was delighted because it connected immediately. My mind started going in multiple directions because it connects to so many things. It connects to what we're doing with tech and innovation. And beyond that, it connects to upward job mobility opportunities. And so looking at opportunities for our complete communities to thrive are just a couple of examples. I was not asked here today to give a speech. I'm actually here to make a very important introduction. So I'd like to introduce to you Eric Strickland, and I'll just give you a few remarks about him before he comes to the stage. Eric Strickland has served as the director of the Riley Area Development Corporation since 2013. RADIC's mission is to develop and support a sustainable community environment in and around downtown Indianapolis, Indiana, through affordable housing, economic development, healthy public space, and community development. Since 1994, RADIC has developed over 400 units of affordable rental housing and 95,000 square feet of commercial space. RADIC has completed 65 home ownership units and 340 homeowner repair projects. These projects represent a total financial investment of over $65 million. Mr. Strickland led several new programs allowing the organization to assist small business development both within its own mixed-use affordable housing development projects and economic development partnership with other neighborhood-based nonprofits. Again, collaboration is key. Their last efforts are the Garfield Park on the south side of Indianapolis, a partnership with Big Car Collaborative for artist housing. They are also developing urban manufacturing in a 500-acre Mass Avenue industrial corridor and opened the new Ruckus Makerspace, all located in the Indy East Federal Promise Zone. In 2016, he was selected as a Business Alliance for Local Living Economies Fellow, the nation's only fellowship focused on development of a new economy that is both healthy and equitable. He was also selected to join the board of directors of the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, a national collaborative of nonprofit, for-profit, and governmental stakeholders working together to grow urban manufacturing, create livable wage jobs, and catalyzing sustainable local economies. Both of these national organizations have accelerated his work in the organization's capacity to engage in equitable economic and community development. Without further ado, I give you Eric Strickland.
thank you very much. So I'm very excited to be here, to be in Houston. And when we were first contacted, the UMA, by Lauren about what was happening at TXRX, we were like, how have we not met before? Because I also have Tanu here from the Pratt Institute, and we talked about equitable innovation and maker spaces and manufacturing. Everything that is happening here is happening in major cities, and there's a lot of thought about being more inclusive in the economy and the role that manufacturing plays in that. For this presentation, I'm going to talk about the Urban Manufacturing Alliance and kind of give you a national view of what's happening in cities, what these manufacturers look like, and how manufacturing is different. I'll be back a little bit later on to talk about some local applications, which I'm really excited to see and hear what's happening in Houston as well. So with the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, I just want to say this is new. My first exposure was in 2015 in Philadelphia. This is a welcoming group. There are now 600 members of over 120 cities, and the group is an open dialogue. We are looking at really dispelling a lot of historically negative association with manufacturing, especially in cities, meaning job loss. And that's very, very hard. My local context to job loss is in Indianapolis. Between 1995 and the year 2000, that's not long ago, we lost 20,000 manufacturing jobs related to automotive consolidation. So if you're a mayor or an economic policy developer, manufacturing is how you not get elected. You go towards innovation. You go towards Salesforce. You go towards those high degree programs that don't yield a lot of jobs. Our Salesforce tower in Indianapolis has 800 jobs. That did not replace the 20,000 that were lost. And we mentioned Amazon. We'll come back to that a little bit, but also those big economic incentives is really not where the jobs are, and it's not where the economy is. It's where we think it is. So I'm going to go through a few slides here for the national context. So where is urban manufacturing? So it's in 3 places. So we have a lot of employment in making. We've all had a craft beer. We all understand what artisan food products are. We can go to Whole Foods and find them. That's where it starts. That's the inventiveness. That's kind of the foundation. Place-based manufacturing then is your local manufacturer, with 20 to 80 employees. And then of course we know what global manufacturing is, and that of course employs a lot of people, but it's just one segment of where companies are. So this is a pretty surprising slide. I'd like you to pay attention to the percentage of manufacturers in a city, because the numbers will vary based on the market size. But as I was saying, you think that these are the large shops in your major blue chip corporations. They're not. You can see across these markets that the UMA has been studying through their state of urban manufacturing, and we're above 67–80% of manufacturers in the city are this small scale, and that is where a lot of jobs are created. And when you get that type of place-based manufacturing, you can start to think about the neighborhoods that it can be in, just not at one port or one location. You can really grow this industry so it's much more accessible on a neighborhood by neighborhood level. And a lot of us in the room here understand the struggles of neighborhood development, right down to the promise zone level. So that's one thing. Starting in 2015, the urban manufacturing wanted to get these statistics in front of people. And again, if you're in policy or local activism, you need to know the environment. So manufacturing, where is it on a national level? We all know it peaked at one time, 1979. We know that it's gone down because we probably, each one of us has a story of someone that was employed in manufacturing that lost their job, and the low point was in 2010. But we do know that it's climbing and it's stabilized. It's not in a free fall, even despite macroeconomics and trade and everything else. There's a high volume of products that are needed to be made in a region, as a nation, even locally. Fighting this trend here and identifying how it's in your local economy is important. So on a citywide basis then, same thing, cities fared a little bit better than the nation, but definitely a dip there in the 2010, but we've been seeing that trend stabilizing, which also adds to this advocacy piece. So I want to talk about the new manufacturing, and a lot of this is what you see in the makerspace, but also what's happening in these smaller manufacturing companies. The cost of CNC machines, CAD design. These are innovative industries. This is where innovation lives. It's not just in tech, it's on the factory floor, and it has to be there to compete. It has to be there to be a safer and cleaner space. We're not talking about manufacturing jobs that are dangerous or dirty or offensive if they're in your neighborhood. These are clean companies, and technology and innovation have driven that to this. So it's important when we talk about manufacturing, we talk about tech, and we know where tech jobs are. So moderately high technology jobs, we do consider a lot of those manufacturing, and then of course we know that where tech hubs are from the national discussion. So another thing around engineering or innovation is where are your engineering resources? I went to a small school in Indiana called Rose-Hulman, and about 20% of the class did wind up in oil and gas in Houston. Innovation starts with research. Innovation in manufacturing includes many people, not just the engineers. So, engineers, again, follow the innovation trends to cities. Cities can support manufacturing, and you can start to see the link. I think in the past, there's a lot of issues around manufacturing that would disconnect the two for some reason, environmental, labor. But manufacturing is a tech economy, and education supports that. So we talk about, and I'm from Indiana, which is a majority rural, and rural America is hurting from a job situation as much as any place. But manufacturing really is beneficial in cities, even though a lot of it goes into rural because of the network. And that can be the educational network, the labor network. Obviously, transportation costs are very important if you can fly your product out or ship it out. So through the UMA, we're identifying those, those strengths, making sure that we're clear on those. I know Dave's here from the Port of Seattle, transportation, and how everything gets connected. So challenges then. In the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, we do a lot of discussion groups. I would say this is an open format group to talk about challenges in an area and relate them to other areas. Land use is always a big concern. And we're seeing some cities that are looking at artisanal zoning, really modernizing their manufacturing and industrial zoning designations, and making sure that we don't have concentrated areas where only jobs are in one area, but small companies can be spread more across the market. We do spend a lot of time talking about land use, and especially as you get to the coastal cities. Obviously, aging infrastructure, I'm a little bit familiar with this, stable power, water pressure, truck access. There's been a lot of just disinvestment in these traditional warehouse and manufacturing districts. And then land use conflicts. So, there's this mentality of zoning where, the residential is here, and then there's a transitional of commercial, and then there's industrial somewhere else. No one really could figure out where that is, but it's definitely separated. If you think about getting a city's population to engage in workforce, to engage in jobs that have that career ladder, the closer that can be to the residential, the better. We know where transportation costs, approach 10, 20% of income. It's another barrier. again, it's a cleaner, more innovative manufacturing. It's not what's in the history books. So workforce development, the great thing about manufacturing is you don't need the engineering degree to come in on the ground level. It does not hold you back. And actually, you meet a lot of people. The skill is working on that team, working with that product. The way that the processes have been designed now, they're much more intuitive. And there's a lot of training, available within the factories. So, and relationship management, there's just so much appeal to tech right now. You can look at some cities; they may have like a tech czar, in their administration. Getting a foothold in the discussion at the table, especially around equity, around job training, around workforce development that includes manufacturing is very important. So, and then there's been a lot of discussion between institutional buying programs, purchasing local. I think across most markets, a lot of foundations are engaged in that, and that ties back to making your products locally. So the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, as I've mentioned before, of course, we have a mission statement that's been developed over about the last 5 years. I'm not gonna read it verbatim, but a lot of our discussion is around the equitable economy. So specifically at the makerspace level, the ability to start a product, the ability to develop that, own the intellectual property, right down to how that company can stay, grow, and employ neighbors, and making it sustainable. So, and the vision here, again, I talked a lot about undoing those negative associations, really understanding, what is thriving in the city, around density, around, your business networks, consumers, consumer movements. So mission and vision were very important, especially picking up the workforce and the equitable economy. So, who is in the UMA? Hold on, go back. So this is really important. We are not including conversations at certain levels. We're welcoming everyone. One of the first UMA events I went to was this great group from Montreal. They were the Montreal Fashion Incubator. They didn't have a space. They didn't know how they got there. They basically drove down to New York to the meeting, but they wanted to galvanize this cottage industry in Montreal around fashion. And they came to the conference very, very poor, very much at the grassroots level, and they took away a lot of structure. They started an in-depth economic study in their market about who was employed that was just in their living room and what impact that was making as a basis. So there's a lot of grassroots involvement in UMA, as well as a lot of institutional support. And Tanu is here from the Pratt Institute, and she'll talk about how we're getting these national numbers. But that's by design. We want anyone who has passion around economic development that's equitable, it's inclusive. That's the purpose of the organization. So how we take everything in, we have about 5 communities of practice, and what that is some folks in the room are really involved in workforce development, and they want to hear what's happening in Seattle or Portland or Indianapolis. We have other groups that are involved in the real estate side, and that's where my strength is. So I want to understand how to leverage CDBG and what is the HUD office in Southern California doing different than our local HUD office. So we break those down into what's called communities of practice. We call that because they are active and it's an ongoing building discussion. And then movement building. So that's why we're here today, and that's why we're here for several other places. It's to just help everyone contribute to the message, so we can go out and add to that. Shaping policy. It's great to see some folks from the city, and I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about how policy can use data. It definitely needs data, and how to get it applied. And again, It's great to have those conversations and getting people to the table, but where can they go? Where can they go within an administrative term? How can they attract the university partnerships? And what is going to be the impact? It's great to talk about these things. It's better when you can see that path of implementation in the time frame which the group's together, because we know that can shift. We know when it shifts. So, and then collaborative research. So one of the things that we do, so some of the stats from Boston, New York, San Francisco, is we like to know what's happening, and Houston here has a huge amount of engineers. We saw some of the data on the number of manufacturers. Again, we have to tell that story over time in which way it's trending. So the research is important as well. So covered a little bit more on our communities of practice. We do have one for local branding, which is where I know Josh had mentioned here SF Made as a model being sold to understand what's being locally made. So local branding, equity, inclusion, and the workforce development. So one more thoughts on our movement building here. If you're not doing factory tours, start doing them. I was casually visiting Toronto, and they had a weekend called Open Doors, and I went to every factory that was open. Not by design, and my travel companion was somewhat confused why we were in a sugar factory, but encourage your local manufacturers to open those doors. And if you think about what's going on and how that can contribute to the movement via press, via personal stories, leadership visits, it's a great way to go. So a big part of our policy has been the artisanal zoning, and really we found that as it's been easily transferable between markets, yet each market can respond differently. So right now there's a lot of penalties around having a business in your house. That's not good for community wealth building. We need to be more open about our zoning practices and kind of break down the barriers that used to be there. So, and I talked a little bit about our collaborative research. I'm going to leave some of this to Tanu, who's from Pratt, which has really been one of UMA's core research partners. Again, the data is part of everything. So that's our overview here for Urban Manufacturing Alliance, and we're excited to be here as part of the conference, and look forward to the rest of the afternoon.
Well, thank you, Eric. We appreciate you and the Urban Manufacturing Alliance for being here and being part of the discussion today. Actually, your organization's involvement will ultimately lead to a white paper on today's topics from all the input from you as attendees and also the sponsors that will hopefully help guide some of the future discussions regarding equity and innovation here in Houston. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I want to thank all of our attendees and sponsors for participating together in this forum to discuss such an important topic. My name is Joshua Sanders, and I'm a very proud board member of TXRX Labs. I have the honor of introducing a man who really needs no introduction. He might need an introduction if you've been living under a rock or you're potentially from another planet, but if not, Mayor Sylvester Turner has been hard to escape. In his short 2.5 years as mayor of the city of Houston, Mayor Turner has accomplished tasks and policy reforms at a historic pace, from pension reform to the response and recovery from the devastating Hurricane Harvey, to his recent announcement supporting the push to form an innovation district in Houston. He is a man of conviction and unparalleled focus when it comes to the issues that are important to him in this community, and he's wasted no time when it comes to taking action. Mayor Turner's commitment to all Houstonians has been evident through his time in office. Through his Complete Communities initiative, the City of Houston has begun undertaking a targeted focus on traditionally underserved neighborhoods to ensure that all Houstonians have the same access to opportunities as everyone else. Those opportunities include traditional things like affordable housing, access to transportation, and quality public infrastructure like parks and libraries. But Complete Communities also includes a focus on the primary reason why we're here today, and that is the focus of equitable innovation and technology. We must ensure that all Houston residents have access to education, job training, and workforce development to make innovation a reality for them. Support of urban manufacturing and the facilities needed to support these skills are part of this discussion as well. Training the workforce of today to support the jobs of tomorrow is not an easy task, but if there is anything evident by our gathering today, we're headed in the right direction. We're excited to hear your thoughts today, Mayor. We thank you for joining us to share your vision, and we stand ready to support you in making Houston a place where all people have equal access to opportunities when it comes to technology and innovation. And now I'm proud to introduce our mayor, the Honorable Sylvester Turner.
Thank you. Just make sure you take it off before I leave. Yeah. All right. Let me say good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Very gracious introduction. Look, it's my pleasure also to be with two other individuals, because one thing I know at City Hall, you don't do anything by yourself. I don't care who you are. And so the Vice Mayor Pro Tem Jerry Davis is also here. Jerry Davis from District B. And then we are situated in Council Member Carlos Cisneros' district, TXRX, is in District H. So give it up to them again. These are my two favorite council members. All the others are good, but these are the best. So look, let me just say good afternoon. It is great to be with you today to talk about some favorite topics. In fact, in the last year or so, there's been a lot more conversations about startups, technology, and innovation in the city of Houston. So when it comes to innovation, education, and economic development, those topics are critically important to the city and to the direction in which we go. How we handle these topics will have a great deal to say whether or not we will build a city of one, or whether or not we'll have a city of many different parts where some people and some groups will be left out. So this is a very important topic. And as you may know, I recently joined Rice University President Dr. David Lebron to announce the creation of the Innovation District at the old Sears building on Main Street. The Future Hub will bring together startups, academics, corporate, and the tech community. And it's important on how we roll all of these efforts out. Because just to piggyback on what Josh said, the quality of opportunities is very, very important. And as a city, we have to tap into our collective resources, talent, and brain trust to compete globally. We can no longer be in the shadow of Chicago or Silicon Valley or Detroit or any of those other cities. This also means we must support equitable growth for manufacturers and entrepreneurs. And in Houston, we have two different types of manufacturing. There are manufacturers that support our legacy industries of oil and gas, aerospace, and medical community. And then we also have a small urban manufacturers that are businesses with usually less than 50 employees. These folks are our entrepreneurs, crafters, and innovators that make the fabric of our city what it is. When I was in school, only a few years ago, yeah, I laugh like, yeah, he up that line and he the mayor. Yeah. We had shop classes that taught people how to make products, to fix our homes, cars, and to move people from schools to careers. Nowadays, schools have kind of gotten away from that. But we need to find a way, bearing in mind the technology innovation, of getting that incorporating back into the fabric of our educational systems. By supporting places such as TXRX Labs, which is hosting this important conference today, they are providing the youth education, job training, and support of startups and small urban manufacturers. And I know Vice Mayor Pro Tem Jerry Davis, we've had a lot of conversations, and I know he's passionate about workforce development and how we build this workforce for future opportunities within our city. They are doing this work with an intentional focus on raising community wealth in all of our neighborhoods. And with programs like this and many others, Houston will become a thriving hub for innovation. But we know from countless examples that if we aren't careful, innovation can increase inequality in our cities and further separate the haves from the have-nots if we don't do it right. Houston is filled with people with great ideas, entrepreneurs and innovators. We will become a great innovation hub, and we will do so by making sure that all of our residents have the access to the education, job training, and workforce development resources necessary to make innovation a reality. Building equity in neighborhoods is more than housing. It also requires a focus on business and economic development. There are great models for this work taking place at the Brooklyn Naval Yard, Pittsburgh, and in San Francisco Bay Area. Houston will be a great city for innovation, and I'm looking forward to develop a model with your support to provide support and resources to small urban manufacturers in Houston. And lastly, much of this work takes the right infrastructure and facilities that can accommodate manufacturers. With the wealth of warehouses in communities such as 2nd and 5th Ward, Acres Home, the near North Side, we must repurpose with a purpose, not just creating more condos, but also creating businesses, jobs, and the infrastructure necessary to support the next generation of Houston manufacturers. Equitable innovation is important to this city and to the prosperity of our communities. And when I came into office, I said I didn't want to be a mayor of have and have-nots. I made a commitment that neighborhoods would be treated the same and have the resources for success. Well, this conference today, in my estimation, and the work of places such as TXRX is bringing this vision for Houston to reality. Let's keep going. We still have a long way to go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roland Barkowski. I'm at the unusual position, I think, between thanking the mayor and introducing our next speaker, which I probably should have chosen an easier spot to go between. But I want to first thank the mayor. Really, this conference's entire name, actually, namesake, is actually kind of patterned after a speech he gave at the Complete Communities meeting in the 2nd Ward, where he talked about innovation and equity, and it was really a light bulb kind of moment for us, where we were like, well, we're TXRX and all of our partners, we're working on innovation, we're working on all these different activities, and we're doing it in an equitable way, but have we really thought about that, I think, from kind of a strategic viewpoint versus just an organic viewpoint? And that's, I think, what has led to us trying to pull together all of you individuals to make it more of a concerted effort. But anyway, thanks to the mayor, most assuredly. Our next speaker, which I get the lucky opportunity to introduce, I first met actually when she came on a tour of TXRX and spent much of her valuable time, I think, talking with me about the critical role Chevron plays in Houston's innovation scene. Barbara Berger asked me a lot of really, I think, meaningful questions, which shaped my thinking on innovation and within Houston and I think the nation as a whole. And so it's really my great honor to introduce her here as one of our speakers. Barbara Berger serves as the president of Chevron Technology Ventures. They find and identify innovation throughout the country and then distribute it and implement it throughout Chevron's global operations. While she does that amazing task, she also serves on numerous different boards and entities throughout Houston. I had to write them down because I couldn't remember all of them. I tried, actually, but it was too hard. So she's on she's the governing director and vice chair of Houston Exponential, actually one of our partners today. She's also the governing director, the executive committee member, and finance committee chair for the Houston Symphony, and she's also on the Houston committee for foreign relations. So Dr. Barbara Berger, thank you so much.
How does that sound?
Good.
Okay. Well, thanks, Roland, for that, and I do remember that early introduction at TXRX, and I grew up with a father who knew how to fix everything and still at it, and I can't wait on his next trip to Houston to show him TXRX. I think he'll be pretty excited. So I want to share some thoughts today on innovation, and I was very pleased to see that the mayor was before me on this agenda, because he was also giving some very nice remarks at the Search Luncheon at the Hilton. And for those of you who know what Search does, they play a critical role in the city relative to the homeless. When I agreed to this, I thought those two sessions were going to be fairly close together in the city, and luckily that I was able to make it between one and the other. But I want to share some thoughts today about Chevron's perspective in innovation, and some stories about innovation in our industry, and how we're supporting what is going on here in Houston. As Roland said, I've been very actively involved on behalf of my company in trying to jumpstart innovation here in Houston. And I give a statistic to many people that I think just kind of plays it simple about why do I care. And then I'll tell you about why my company cares. I moved here in 2013 from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, so I knew about innovation. And I moved here because the base of Chevron's upstream operations were here. And I quickly found out that we have invested in more startups in Stavanger, Norway than in Houston, Texas. And I asked why. And because we will go around the globe to look for technology, but why weren't we investing more here? And it's a long and complicated story, but it wasn't because we didn't want to. So that's kind of my journey has been in how do we get more here where they'll undoubtedly have a home court advantage. Our business relies on technology. I'll give you a few examples. Probably most of you aren't in the oil and gas industry, and so you may not know those things, but I just put it in perspective. These are examples over the course of time, because our industry is a long-standing industry, as well as some things that are happening now. Technology comes into our company through a number of doors, and I think those are important when you think about how we support innovation. They come through our employees, and our employees do research and development and take things out to the operations, and they come through a large network of suppliers. So it's actually in our self-interest to build capability and technical capability, and for our employees today and tomorrow, as well as our suppliers. And so that really starts to answer the question about why corporations care and why Chevron cares. So I'll put everything in the context of Houston, as I said. It's not where our headquarters are. We are based in California, but it is where many of our businesses and organizations are located, and some 7,500 employees. So call this place home, okay? A bit about the technology and just some examples. When I joined Chevron, oil wells were drilled in water depths of about 5,000 feet. Today, we can safely drill over 10,000 feet and a total depth of over 35,000 feet. Technology and the desire to produce a higher percentage of our own oil domestically in the U.S. enabled this. I think you all know the success of the U.S. oil and gas industry over the last decade, the tremendous change from 2007, when we worried as a nation about energy security. And we said all of the above because we were very much dependent on other countries for our energy supplies, to abundance today when the U.S. is the leading oil and gas producer. We've changed the supply, or the import-export balances of both oil and natural gas over that time. That translates to jobs and lower cost energy in the U.S., and since the center of much of that is in Texas and in Houston. As you know, the rocks haven't changed. I mean, Mother Nature likes to play around a lot, but those rocks haven't changed. But the ability to access the resources and the cost to access the resources have changed, and technology has enabled that. The changes to our business haven't just been in one part of the company, but in every part of the company and every part of the business. So just for some examples, we thread a fiber optic cable downhole and gather data and insights that inform how we drill and future wells in the same field. It's a great example of combining an understanding of rocks. So we got a lot of geologists that live in Houston. Drilling and completions along with digital technologies. The downhole sensors are with data connectivity and back to the algorithms and the data scientists to locate the most productive resource zones in a reservoir. We monitor and operate our U.S. pipeline system from a single floor here in Houston. We monitor it and we operate it. We take the actions to turn the valves from a floor here on Louisiana. It looks just like the Johnson Space Center. And through the use of specialized cameras that were developed here in Houston, we're able to detect leaks, intrusions into the facilities, and to be able to direct our maintenance personnel out to exactly where a repair job needs to take place. We monitor many of the drilling rigs around the world from another floor here in Houston. We have experts able to help the drilling engineers on site to improve the operations and protect against incident. We're experiencing with Halo Lens. Does anybody know what a Halo Lens is? You probably know what Google Glass is. Similar idea, Microsoft. Being able to help with work remotely. Imagine this, you want to ensure that a supplier has fabricated a part correctly or did an engineering review that meets our specifications. And in the past and even now, we would send people out, sometimes halfway around the world, sometimes 3/4 of the way around the world, to inspect that part or review that documentation. It's slow, it's costly, and it ties up critical resources. But there's another way to do this. Imagine through the use of a Halo Lens and other augmented reality and virtual reality tools, we can see the parts and documentation procedures and activities remotely and collaborate. Ask questions and do the job without having to spend time and cost traveling. That's just one example of the use of augmented and virtual reality that we are using in our field and also collaboration with suppliers. So for a global company with suppliers and people spread out all over the way, this kind of technology opens up all kinds of opportunities. I could go on and on. So why did I share this? Well, first of all, the expectations on our operations and expectations of all of you in the room as consumers and neighbors of ours is to produce more, faster, safer, cheaper, with less use of resources and less impact on the environment. Those expectations continue to increase, and they require us to continue to look for different ways to do our business. While technology is not the only knob, it's a very important one, and it has been and it always will be. So as I mentioned, technology comes from lots of places, from research and development, from our own scientists and engineers, to our suppliers, both big and small. In our business, having more technology and more suppliers of technology available is always a good thing. It helps us find, develop, produce, process, transport, distribute affordable energy from various sources. This talk isn't just about technology or innovation or just simply growth. It's also about how we ensure that innovation is inclusive in the broadest sense. So that definition, or that rings loud and clear for us at Chevron. We have a guiding document at Chevron called the Chevron Way, which just lays out strategies, our purpose, our core values. One of the fundamental underpinnings is getting the results the right way and establishes a common understanding. But two of the key core values are diversity, inclusion, and partnership. And I'll give you some examples where we try to walk the talk on that. So we are committed. So let's first talk. The success of our business, having access to a talented supply of workers educated in the STEM fields. And that's why we're committed to increasing access and raising the quality of education. From the early years on, we know if we just target the universities, we've not gone upstream enough in the pipeline to unlock the potential of students and foster progress and prosperity. Educated and skilled workforce leads to economic growth, not just for our business, but for our business partners and the communities where we operate. So we partner with educational organizations, governments, NGOs, and community leaders to develop and support innovative programs that invest in tomorrow's workforce by educating students, training teachers, providing classroom resources, and preparing workers to excel in their jobs through workforce training. We bring together the people, resources, and expertise to deliver lasting change by supporting educational programs from kindergarten through college and career and technical training for the workforce. So a couple of examples that we support here in Houston. One of them is Jason Learning. It's a nonprofit we sponsor. The organization provides curriculum and learning experiences that inspire students to pursue careers in STEM-related fields. Award-winning curricula developed with the National Geographic Society and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The program features materials, hands-on activities. Hands-on is very important. That's where TXRX, I think, has a leg up. Videos and online games for students, as well as lesson plans and professional development for educators. In the Houston area, more than 140,000 students and more than 1,100 teachers are participating in the program, which has been rolled out across 8 Harris County school districts. We've partnered with the Children's Museum of History, or Children's Museum of Houston, to engage guests of all ages in STEM-related interactive programs like the Houston Mini Maker Fair, the Houston Maker Corp Summer Program for Students, National Engineering Week, which brings 50,000 attendees together to work on robotics, circuitry, and other projects, and the Chevron Houston Texans Makers Annex, which helps children build interest and skills in making and the related STEM disciplines, exposure to 3D printing, laser cutting, and coding. We've also supported a variety of programs with the Museum of Natural Science. The Chevron Expedition Center program is offered at both of the museum's locations, where they've developed a program that emphasizes team problem solving as it gives students the opportunity to model 21st century STEM careers they can have in Houston. Through the University of Houston, we've introduced 2 programs. Girls Engineering, a favorite of mine, The Future Day, exposes Houston area 4th to 8th grader students to the wide and wonderful world of engineering through fun, hands-on, led by college professors and student organizations. And to the Science and Engineering Fair of Houston. Students compete in one of the largest competitive science engineering fairs in the country. All these partnerships, and many times we're involved from a resource standpoint and employee standpoint, but also a financial standpoint. The partners and programs are geared towards promoting STEM education and increasing not just access to education, but also interest in further study and careers that pursue STEM themes. It helps ensure we have a pipeline of new employees, well prepared with the skills that we value. It's no surprise we invest in the things that we value and the things that we need. We're a business. We focused on STEM in particular because the world needs more of it. So we focused investments in schools and educational institutions and programs that encourage more children from all backgrounds to pursue STEM careers. Programs and investments that, like these, support the local economy beyond the direct talent that we recruit. Another key priority for us is to do everything we can to expand the availability of possible suppliers for our supply chain. That's why we also partner with a number of organizations that focus on improving access and increasing opportunities to engage with companies like Chevron. We will be the first to admit it has not been easy in the past, and maybe still now, for small companies and large corporations to work together. It's an issue we continue to work to improve, whether the small companies are startup tech companies or locally owned businesses. Improving those business relationships increases our supply opportunities, gives us access to innovative technologies, and strengthens our relationships in the communities which we're located. Over time, it also transforms our supply chain to better reflect the communities we live and work. Our experience is there's a lot of smaller, innovative companies out there that we can and should be working hard to find and build relationships with. Sometimes they can be more flexible, more innovative, and more nimble than our typical large corporate partners, but don't tell them that. Or maybe tell them that and it'll take their game up to the next level. But there's no doubt that critical experience and capability exist across the landscape of small and locally owned companies. This is particularly true in a city like Houston. That's why we think it's important to pursue breaking down those barriers to entry. In 2016, Chevron spent more than $500 million with certified women-owned and minority businesses across our operations. The businesses, nearly 700 of them, made enormous impact on the local communities that we work in. We spent over $2 billion on goods and services from U.S.-based small businesses. To get more specific and local, Chevron's a leading member and supporter of a number of local organizations that advocate for both the utilization and the development of minority-owned, local, and small businesses in corporate supply chains. In Houston here, we play a lead role in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Asian Chamber of Commerce, the Black Chamber of Commerce, the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and the Women's Business Enterprise Alliance, which works to create opportunities for local women-owned businesses. We're leading sponsor and member of the Houston Minority Supplier Development Council, which connects and engages with minority-owned businesses in order to provide opportunities to do business with Chevron. We also partner with organizations across Houston that work to foster technology innovation, and that's the remit that I have. They include organizations like TXRX and other local accelerators and incubators and university programs that together work to help local entrepreneurs and startups. We're one of the founding sponsors of Station Houston, a local hub for the startup community, and sponsor and service business plan competition judges at Rice University and elsewhere. Being actively involved in those organizations and events like that catalyzes both the startup companies but our collaboration with them. All of these partnerships help us ensure that the business we do here in Houston, the people we hire, and the organizations we work with actually reflect and capitalize on the talent that already exists here. This is an approach that works for Chevron and other businesses and industries. It works for the city in terms of economic development, and most importantly, hopefully it works for Houstonians. We're always looking for the companies that target our needs, and as I mentioned before, the ones in Houston will have a home court advantage for the businesses we have here. I mentioned the camera that can monitor remotely emissions from our operations, which is very important for us to be able to play our game with a lower impact on the environment. Their company, just a few blocks from TXRX, that is the founder. And we've partnered with them to introduce their technology into our operations. Rice graduates. It allows, as I mentioned, allows us to monitor our own operations. The fact that the offices and their small-scale manufacturing was within walking distance or probably an Uber, from our offices, meant that it's really easy to collaborate. So I've shared with you a few examples of how we're engaged in supporting innovation and how we view innovation in general. As I mentioned at the outset, we view ourselves as a technology company, and with respect to innovation, we need more. Our need for technology innovation is constantly growing. The volume and velocity of real-time data we work with in our operations, from the reservoir through to refineries to the retail pump, grows at a dramatic pace every year. A particularly vibrant area right now is advancing high-performance computing and data analytics to help capitalize on strides in data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and cloud, and perhaps the next big thing, edge computing. We have very little talent and startups here in Houston that can help us with that, and that's something we want to try to build here. All of the industries here need suppliers that can help them in the data and digital side of the business, and there's no reason why we can't develop that talent here in Houston. You know, it's a great time to be part of the innovation ecosystem, and I'm very optimistic. I guess being around the mayor, all of us are optimistic about the momentum we have going in Houston right now. It's leveraging the strengths we have as a city, as well as the will and desire and leadership to grow this segment of the economy. You can see it in the new accelerators and co-working spaces popping up, increased company formation, and the interest from much of the more established parts of the economy. I think it's going to take that inclusion from all parts of the economy to really make that happen, and I think that's one of the signature strengths of Houston is not only our diversity amongst our people, but our diversity amongst the parts of the economy. So we've had a long-standing record in collaborating with the community on access to education and development of a vibrant workforce and supply chain. We want to foster and have fostered the technology innovation ecosystem. It's good for our business for all the reasons I mentioned. It's good for Houston. We're all in. We look forward to playing a key role in the Houston innovation scene as it grows from this day forward. So thank you very much, and good luck on your conference this afternoon.
Hey everyone. Hello. How about you all stand up just for 10 seconds? That might feel good. Stretch a little bit. Wiggle your arms. All good? Okay, you sit back down now. Alright, how'd that feel? So, show of hands, who as a child built Legos, made paper airplanes, sewed stuff together, helped your parents cook food, any of that? So I can always tell because makers have that crazy look in their eyes. And that crazy look is that we can't stand to have an empty space exist without something good helping out here. And I think that's what this conference is all about, building some good stuff. So as a child, I never colored between the lines, so I'm not going to start now. So rather than read Tanu's bio, I'd say ask her 3 questions. So I think you're all nervous with these questions, but that's okay, we'll work through it. So the first question was, what did she do as a child? What did she recall about making as a child? She said in her early years in India, she would make something out of anything. It could be pieces of paper, it could be banana leaves, it could be anything at all. And so she made amazing things as a child. Then I asked her, what was the last thing that she made? And she made a puppet theater for her 3 children, which I thought was pretty impressive. Probably not something I could pull off easily. Then I asked her one final question, which is, what's her crazy vision for the future? And she said that she wants a future where her 3 children and all of their friends and every child around the world has an equal ability and an equal platform to make amazing things. So with that, I want to introduce Tanu Kumar to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I'm totally going to steal that, by the way. And I think that's the hardest part of my day, was answering those questions, so I'm glad that's over with. It's really great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. And I've already learned in my short time here that Texas is where it's at. So I'm really happy to be here, my first time in Houston, and I hope to be coming back. So my name is Tanu Kumar, and I'm a senior fellow at the Pratt Center for Community Development. The Pratt Center is an urban planning and policy-focused nonprofit that's based at the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. And we've had an amazing opportunity to partner with the UMA on building out their community of practice that's focused on equity and inclusion. And so for the last 3 years, we've been supporting practitioners across the country as they work to reinvent the status quo and really think about how to implement new approaches to economic development. These are approaches that lead with the belief that more inclusive growth is vital to creating resilient communities. that investing in small-scale manufacturing and production is one strategy that can contribute to inclusive growth, and that innovation and technology can be leveraged to create broad-based benefits. So today I'm going to share some highlights from our research, technical assistance, and field building efforts, and try to leave you with some lessons and best practices from this work. And I hope that these will be a helpful framework and catalyst for your conversations today. Sorry, I have a few graphs, but I'll try to speed through these. So to help UMA member cities really map out strategies for inclusive growth, we felt that we first had to situate ourselves and understand the current equity issues that are playing out in our workforce, and also understand how these impact the manufacturing sector. So we began to look at many indicators that illustrate the disparities in today's workforce. For us, this chart in particular that was produced by one of our partners, PolicyLink, was really telling of this gap. So we know that nationally unemployment is actually decreasing, but the percentage of workers that are working full-time and still living in poverty is actually increasing. And this is a trend that's experienced disproportionately in communities of color. We look at the jobs of the future. You know, Eric described some of the ways that manufacturing is shifting as well. These jobs are going to increasingly require higher levels of educational attainment and probably some type of advanced degree credential. So nearly 40% of all jobs are projected in 2020 to require an associate's degree or higher. And current educational attainment levels, if we look at the workforce now, show that our workforce isn't adequately prepared for this. And this is especially true amongst Black, Latino, and Native American populations. So manufacturing has historically been an industry of opportunity. So it's been an industry that's been able to help meet those or close those gaps. It's provided good quality middle wage jobs to workers without higher levels of educational attainment. And a better alternative than some of the other industries that are accessible to these workers, such as retail, food service, accommodation, and some healthcare jobs. So we wanted to understand whether that was a trend that was going to continue. Can manufacturing still provide this pathway? So we partnered with the UMA on their State of Urban Manufacturing study and analyzed secondary data from 13 metropolitan statistical areas across the US. So that's not just the city, it's also areas around the city that are considered metropolitan. And what we found was pretty interesting. We found that on average, manufacturing wages are still higher today than retail, food service, or some healthcare jobs, or wages in some healthcare jobs. And in almost all of these MSAs, they are actually higher than the living wage. Now this is a promising picture, but this is at a this is a high level. So it's a lot of different industries, and the geographies are quite big. So we wanted to kind of look a little more carefully at what entry-level jobs in manufacturing look like. Are they really a stepping stone, and can they actually provide good wages at the entry level? So these jobs at the entry level manufacturing tend to be production jobs. So what we're able to do is actually isolate out production wages in each of these 13 MSAs. And our findings here were even more promising, actually. We found that even at the production level in 11 of 13 of these MSAs, wages in manufacturing are still higher than the living wage for a family of 4. So that's 2 adults and 2 children. And I think it's just interesting to note that the differential is highest in Houston. So we don't necessarily know which industries or occupations are specifically driving these numbers, but I think that it does show that manufacturing overall may still have a potential to provide equitable employment opportunities, and it's an important sector to consider. We also found some persistent equity challenges within this sector. One indicator that we looked at compares wages, looks at wages disaggregated by race, and shows that people of color tend to be underrepresented in the higher paying occupations in manufacturing. So those are jobs like at the management level. And this is, given what we know about educational attainment, this is just likely to be exacerbated as job requirements shift. So this data is all great and it's indicative, but when we really wanted to sort of test that with our membership and understand how this was playing out for cities. And these equity challenges that we found were really resonating with the questions and concerns that we're hearing from cities across the UMA network. And these questions were related to, what can we do about low-wage work in the manufacturing sector and production jobs? How can we raise the floor on that? What are the potential impacts of the maker movement and this investment in entrepreneurship? Can it actually catalyze equitable job growth? Or is it just going to benefit certain communities? And how can we prepare a more diverse workforce for careers in high-tech or advanced manufacturing? So these are really some of the concerns that we were hearing. So to answer some of these questions, we partnered again with the UMA to launch a pilot initiative in 2014 where we could really think through these issues more carefully. And this was called the Equitable Innovation Economies Initiative. It's a mouthful. We call it EIE. And the goal of EIE was to create a learning cohort of cities to help them advance more equitable outcomes in their strategies focused on the innovation economy and manufacturing. 4 cities participated in our pilot initiative, Indianapolis, New York, Portland, and San Jose. And each of the teams from these cities was actually led or supported by a government agency, which was really important to us because they were committed to thinking through a specific program or initiative that they already had underway, and also committed to implementation. There were a range of strategies represented. The group, as you can see, is pretty diverse in terms of type of city and size. New York City and Portland used this opportunity to focus on creating a more inclusive entrepreneurial and maker ecosystem in their cities. Indianapolis, with a team that was led by Eric and some of his partners, focused on tying investment in an industrial space with accessible, good quality job opportunities for neighboring communities. And in San Jose, the focus was on refining their workforce programs to connect low-income youth with career opportunities in the high-tech manufacturing sector. And you can read about each of these. We have case studies written up about each of these, and they're on the Urban Manufacturing website, which I can share with you. So together we work to define what a more equitable innovation economy might look like. And I just wanted to sort of share this definition with you. And we can talk later about how it resonates with you and what your feedback might be. But for us, this was one in which innovation and productivity is actually leveraged to create good jobs and to broaden access to these jobs. And to also increase the talent pool in underserved communities. We also relied on a few core design principles as we worked with these cities to help us continually focus our strategies on the people and places most often left behind, to remind ourselves that community participation had to be meaningful, and that we needed to check ourselves on progress along the way. So while it's still early in terms of outcomes, I think there's a lot of progress made. Each of these cities is actually moving on with implementation of the programs that we worked on. But I wanted to spend a little time talking about the insights and challenges, because I think that's kind of one of the most interesting aspects of this. And really the process opened our eyes to the difficulties around scaling and replicating equity strategies. One issue that we found is that changing mindsets is really slow, especially in a context where diverse voices haven't necessarily been at the table in the past, or there's a legacy where those voices were left out. And I think conversations around race and equity are really challenging, especially within government. There's a lack of, another challenge is there's a lack of reliable data on urban manufacturing today. So these are the small entrepreneurial businesses that define the sector in our cities. And we don't have that data. The Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't track makers very well. And we also don't have that data disaggregated by race, gender, or other variables that would help us understand the baseline or the impact on these communities. And then I think finally, without equity, equity-focused policies or commitments in place within local administration, sustainability and replicability is a major challenge given political turnover. So those are some of our findings. But again, we wanted to sort of, part of this process and the value of this was really to take these findings to the broader network and to hear how this was resonating with other cities. So we produced a series of publications, and we spent some time at the UMA's in-person convenings and over webinars discussing these issues with other cities. And we got a lot of valuable feedback, but we also began to develop a knowledge base and really create a dialogue around these issues. And during this process, we found a lot of examples of promising strategies from across the country, which local practitioners were actually leveraging manufacturing growth and really committing to addressing the skills gap in particular in this sector. And so I wanted to share these 7 kind of strategies and best practices that we distilled from this process with you. So the first strategy is just kind of simple, but it's not so easy, I think, in practice, is to be really bold and name your equity goals in urban manufacturing up front, whether that might be around raising production wages or connecting jobs or training opportunities to job seekers with a criminal record or fostering more diverse maker communities. And this is an image from Commonwealth Kitchen, which is in Boston. It's a food incubator space, and they specifically support people that have been disproportionately impacted by racial, social, and economic inequality. And they hold themselves to that standard, and they really see this as a pathway to addressing inequality in their cities. So Commonwealth Kitchen now has 50 member businesses, 70% of which are owned by women or people of color, and the majority of their workforce is people of color. So with these equity goals in place, I'm going to come back to data a couple times, but it's really critical to collect meaningful data disaggregated by race, gender, or place to understand the impact that we're having. This type of data can also help us refocus our program strategies to be more impactful. It can help demonstrate outcomes and make a policy case for this work, and also allows for comparisons across geographies, which is really, really important. So these are some examples of the types of indicators that we developed during the EIE pilot. What we did is we took more traditional measures of economic growth, so things like new hires or venture capital raise, and we tried to tie them to the specific target communities that we were trying to serve. So which of these indicators were most meaningful given the current context and in trying to reach the goals that each city was trying to meet. This is an example for Indianapolis, which I think is really great, where LISC has helped to kind of facilitate this process by creating a customized online data collection tool, which enables multiple partners from across its Great Places program to track progress against mutually defined equity goals for the program. So the next strategy I want to talk about is expanding networks and outreach. This, to us, meant continuously asking who is at the table, who's missing, and how are people participating in the conversation. So strategies that can reach into underserved communities can help ensure that these groups contribute to and benefit from growth, and can also help us invest in talent in these communities. So during the EID pilot, we worked with the New York City Economic Development Corporation to help them broaden their outreach and diversify participation in the Next Top Makers program, which is their entrepreneurship development program focused on design and production. And this wasn't an easy task to move a city agency, but we were successful in helping them invest in workshops and information sessions that were brought to communities. So instead of asking people to come to them, they actually went out into communities. They hired mentors that looked like the entrepreneurs. So they were mentors of color, they were women that could really connect with the people they were trying to serve. And they facilitated a lot of networking and just opportunities for people to build relationships, which is so important to closing this gap. And in 2 years, they were able to completely flip the composition of their cohort. Another example of innovative outreach, Detroit Kitchen Connect is a food business incubation program managed by the Eastern Market Corporation. They partner directly with churches and CBOs to go out and identify potential entrepreneurs directly from the disinvested communities that they want to serve. So they're trying to build community wealth, and they go out and find or meet entrepreneurs where they are. Access to capital and other business development support, such as training or financial literacy, is a well-documented issue for entrepreneurs of color and women entrepreneurs. They may not have the personal resources, business networks, or investor relationships that they need to succeed. So there's a huge need for programs that can support these entrepreneurs both in the startup and growth phases. So Portland, another one of our EIE cities, set out to address this lack of diversity in their baker ecosystem by partnering with the state and an investment advisory firm to set up the Inclusive Startup Fund, which invests seed capital in minority and women-owned business. And I think to date they've raised, they've invested $3 million in 6 startup businesses. These are 2 incredible programs from Cincinnati. The Minority Business Accelerator targets businesses in the growth phase. They work with minority-owned businesses by helping them with sales, networking, and other opportunities. They also involved in succession planning, which is a major issue in the manufacturing sector. As some of these older businesses die out, what's the plan for kind of stemming that job loss and helping to transform these businesses? And Mortar is a community-based entrepreneurship development program. What they do is they invest in promising businesses that also contribute to community welfare. And they've seen a lot of traction with this model, and they've had tremendous impact in a community in particular called Over the Rhine, which is an amazing place. Another strategy that we found to be really successful was cross-sector partnerships. So these are partnerships between kind of your traditional economic development organizations, might be industry or manufacturing, business associations, but then partnerships with, what's amazing about these models are they are able to partner with community development organizations that aren't traditionally involved in manufacturing at all, and the benefits are tremendous. So these are groups like churches, social service organizations, businesses, maker spaces, or community colleges. They each have something unique to bring to the table, and these partnerships really can have mutual benefit. So this is an example from Sierra College, which is a community college in San Francisco, and they partnered with Hacker Lab to bring a community German makerspace onto their campus. So that's really spurred interest in hands-on learning among student and faculty at the community college, and has really helped diversify some of the pipelines into manufacturing and production in Sacramento. I think innovative partnerships are also really important for addressing barriers in the manufacturing workforce pipeline. This is an example from Brooklyn. EQUIP is an initiative that's spearheaded by Pratt Center and the Pratt Institute. And what we're trying to do is partner with other local anchor institutions. The Brooklyn Navy Yard, the Brooklyn Tech Triangle, these are really the kind of the giants in our local creative tech and manufacturing sectors. And they're growing exponentially. Job growth here is tremendous. And then also with our local high schools and our public housing associations to try to really increase access and exposure for low-income youth in our neighborhood to careers in advanced manufacturing, to careers in tech and media. And what we're trying to do is not just create awareness, we're actually trying to facilitate internship opportunities and educational opportunities for these students. There are a number of programs across the country that are trying to connect people of color, youth, women, and other groups facing higher barriers to entry to advanced manufacturing jobs, and I can talk about others as well. These are two examples that I think are really amazing. San Jose Works, again, another EIE city. They worked with their local workforce investment board to refine their a workforce training program and enable them to focus directly on youth from census tracts that they identified and connect them to high-tech manufacturing jobs in San Jose. Raise the Floor is an example from northern Kentucky. They're working, it's a community college, business association, and government partnership to help women enter the manufacturing workforce. Finally, and I'm going to let Eric talk a lot more. He's the expert on this. But another important strategy is really around land use models and ensuring that there's affordable and accessible, an adequate supply of affordable and accessible industrial space, especially in our hot market cities where there are a lot of real estate pressures. And I wanted to talk about one example from San Francisco where they've taken a zoning designation. They've designated certain areas in the city as PDR districts, production, design, repair, districts that can foster manufacturing. But they've also, what they've done is they've also created an enforcement mechanism which requires some type of mechanism to make sure that these properties stay affordable and stay manufacturing. And what they've used here, this is again an SF-made example, but they've used nonprofit industrial management as that mechanism. So a nonprofit oversees the actual manufacturing space and makes sure that those uses remain in perpetuity. So I think moving forward, the UMA is really interested in continuing to share this knowledge base and expand opportunities for dialogue and really kind of serve as a partner to cities who are trying to scale their inclusion strategies. So you should all join if you haven't already and participate in these conversations. And I look forward to hearing your feedback and hearing about the local challenges here in Houston. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you for the presentation, Ms. Kumar. I also want to say thank you for not having the City of Houston in any one of those as an example of how we move forward. Yes, it was painful to watch, but I appreciate that. It was very painful when we went. How you doing, Gwen? I want to recognize Ms. Gwen Tillison with the City of Houston Economic Development Department. Thank you for coming out. It was painful when myself, Josh, Sam, and Gwen went to New York and took a look at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and saw everything that was going on. And it was kind of funny because one lady, she was giving us a presentation. She was telling us about everything that was going on. And she stopped and she said,
what's going on? Did someone say it was something burning? I was like, yeah, Houston's economy, because we did not have any type of job production and any innovation like that that was so big. And so I want to thank you all again for pointing that out to us. It's okay. It's okay. We can move forward now. I want to bring up the next person. He's been here before, but Mr. Eric Strickland, so he can speak on what's going on with the Raleigh Area Development Corporation.
Thank you, and you know, that's a great starting point. What was just said. So I'm not the Brooklyn Naval Yard, and Indianapolis is not New York. I'm not going to bring that slide up about the neighborhood, but I want to kind of reference that when I talk about how we got involved and what we saw as equitable innovation economy when we worked with Pratt and a group called LISC and did the EIE study in Indianapolis. So who does this and where do you start? And there's so many people involved. Education, there's maker spaces, there's co-working spaces in my community. But I feel like it's not in my neighborhood. It's not happening where I know it needs to happen. So I took a job running a community development corporation after spending about 20 years in I did shopping malls. So Whole Foods, Target Corporation, those type of developments, and I thought that was community development for a very long time. I was very, very wrong. That's real estate development, and your mayor said it best when he said it's not just about housing. Equity is not housing; it's economic development. And for the first year when I took the nonprofit job, I was very comfortable doing housing. There's housing, there's units, there's incomes. HUD comes to a ribbon cutting. This is great. I'm cleaning up old projects that my predecessor did. We're looking at neighborhoods, quality of life plans. Everyone is very happy. We're not talking about equity. We're talking about housing. And it's a number. There's funding. I know when the grant cycles are. I know where the money comes from and what the expectations are. When we started to talk about economic development, my first answer was no. I do real estate development. I like real estate development. And then someone came to me and said, you're the only community development corporation, we have 6, that can even try to take this on. Even if you fail, you've succeeded. Please, please look at it. And I said no again, because, you know, I don't want to go into that world, but we started again looking, what are the resources? I made a connection at the Brooklyn Naval Yard again, you know, and said, okay, I can see how we can get the real estate side going. I don't understand equity. That's a community conversation. I'm not seeing our community have that conversation. I can start with real estate. So we looked at what a community development corporation can do. It can do a lot of housing, and housing can be a good thing. Housing can make you understand neighborhood demographics deeply, can connect you with people, can connect you with organizations. You know, you are in the neighborhood as an owner, and at a nonprofit level, at a CDC level, you are not the city or the state. You are viewed as a community board. You have a stakeholder. You're responding to people. So we looked at our mixed-use development projects, and we looked at those that were underway, and we started to apply some equity principles there. You know, if we're going to develop a mixed-use project in an up-and-coming Main Street program, what if half of the business owners are women or people of color? And how do we get there? And there's no grants, there's no path. But how are we going to introduce ourselves to those potential business owners? How are we going to shift our capital investment, restructure our debt so we're not doing chain stores, we're not doing a cell phone store, but we're looking at small business. We got a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more understanding of what's going on. So we had an opportunity to work with a couple of key initiatives to understand urban manufacturing from from what our organization's capacity. And that's 4 people, that's a budget of $800,000 a year. That's not much horsepower when you are dealing with the graphs that were just in front of us. So a couple things that we relied on. We relied a lot on the Urban Land Institute to help with the community dialogue. Real estate developers know a lot of people. They are well connected politically. So as we looked at, how we approach equitable economies, reading our EIE studies, participating, we got to get that message out quickly. And we got to get it out to a lot of people fast. So Urban Land Institute, national organization, always has local active chapters. We got a little foothold in there. Talking about something else besides shopping malls, which is where they knew me from. Talking about what do we do with these small manufacturing spaces, these leftover 20, 30,000 square foot buildings, former automotive plant, 500,000 square feet. What if we look at them as a cluster? What if we took our traditional HUD Section 4 money that's used for focused neighborhood corridor development and don't do another Main Street program, but we apply it across an industrial district? Now we have a resource. Now we went from 4 to 5, but one person can work on it every day. And that was through a program from Local Initiative Support Corporation, which was tied in with EIE and UMA. Our city stepped up, and during one of the first UMA conferences, they took everyone. And they took everyone to Philadelphia to an event like this, which is great. We've never all been in the room to talk about it. We've never all been at the same conference or with the same skill set. And they took one critical person. We took someone from the press with us, because we knew if we all went there, even if it was 8 of us, we had to have someone professionally tell the story back to the community. So we scraped together some money. We bought that one reporter that always covers the city beat. We bought her I think it was just a one-way ticket. We weren't incredibly generous, but we're like, you're coming with us to Philadelphia. And she helped document the entire tour of the neighborhoods, discussions like this, breakout sessions, communities of practice, the data that's being reported, and just ran multiple stories around, the ULI study that got us the traction. So it was important to arrive with your place and your community at the same time. But I realized that was just the beginning of the work. So now I'm no longer saying no, I'm saying yes, but now what? So a lot of things, that we've talked about here, a makerspace, workforce training, affordable space for manufacturers to grow, artisan zoning, that's well beyond the capacity of five individuals. So we kind of dug in on our 500-acre designated area, and we just started chipping away at just a few of the ideas here. And one of the things that I want to focus on is very important in place and community need. There were 6 opportunity areas in Indianapolis, and we could have chosen any one of them. We wanted to be in the most difficult one. That was the one that needed the most amount of help. So we're talking census tracts where unemployment is 24% in today's market. Studies that say 50% of individuals within those tracts are employable but not employed. Areas that they have brownfield problems. They are disconnected from the city. They are not going to be your hip up-and-coming neighborhood. No one wants to be here because of contamination and just decades of social disinvestment. So we have if we had the Brooklyn Naval Yard up there, we have the worst real estate in the city, jammed between a freeway and a rail line. It doesn't even make sense connectivity-wise, but it had a lot of potential. So we focused on a couple of things. One, we wanted to address you also have to get some quick wins out of the way. So we wanted to help one developer who had a dream of buying a former automotive factory. It was in receivership from the bank. It's 500,000 square feet. It shut down right at that peak period of manufacturing in 1979. It was roughly a business center. The biggest tenant was the U.S. Post Office. They used it to sort seasonal mail, and that was it. So this was completely underutilized, but it had a roof, it had an owner, it had someone you could call to lease space. It just didn't have a direction. And we thought, this is where we need to do a makerspace. You know, this is what, you know, 500 acres and 500,000 square feet and a movement can identify around a 12,000 square foot space. But during that time, we were learning a lot about, you know, what is your maker space? And I've been to a lot of spaces. There's several in the Brooklyn Naval Yard, collaborative workspaces or co-working space. We didn't really need that. What we created was, we created a lot was like what was profiled with the Detroit Kitchen. 70% of our makers are women or people of color. Products are using innovation, but it's not a tech lab. We looked at age. We looked at where we went to say, do you know anyone who's making a product? We don't advertise. We do not want to be portrayed as just a place. We want to connect with the community to offer a place, and it's a different approach. There are stereotypes amongst age. You know, everyone who's in there is a millennial. Our makers in our space are between 22 and 71. And I'm really excited about the person who's 71 because I love her food product. So it's not just one group. We looked at some of the ideas, you know, that you see in here, but had to apply them correctly. Our big supporter for our innovation side was School of Industrial Design, which we borrowed from you guys. We stole it, but Pratt had told me if you're going to launch a makerspace, make sure you include an industrial design school. I don't even know what that was at the time. Fortunately, we only had one in Indiana, so it was an easy choice on who to talk to. They took the pressure off of creating the place and a lot of the technology and a lot of understanding where the technology, so we could focus on people. So that the makerspace in our space really set the tone for a friendly environment. It led us to different paths for funding for industrial spaces. We were able to bring in banks. We were able to receive funding from the SBA. We were also, as you might expect, we also had several reentry programs in our district, and we wanted to engage the reentry population. And one of the things, there's about 120 businesses in that 500 acres. It's very low density. When we talk to them about, you know, why are you not hiring from the neighborhood? Why are you not hiring from the job training programs? There was a lot of bias and misunderstanding of what reentry training was. A lot of misunderstanding about neighborhoods as well. So the CDC's role for us was really, you know, a journey. It wasn't really even laid out at all. But we used some comfortable tools around traditional Main Street development, our understanding of affordable housing, and then building in these equitable items. As we built out our makerspace, which is much more of a product incubator than classroom focused, like we were talking about in some of the STEM education circles, we started to identify you know, our hiring. So we were bringing in facade grants for businesses. We're bringing in, using CDBG funds to do internal improvements for small manufacturers. We spent a lot of time asking HUD a lot of questions. We would get 20 no's and 1 yes. So micro enterprise development for women and minority entrepreneurs, technical assistance, working with your law firms. A lot of people will contribute once they understand what's happening. And you have to build that platform. But our most recent effort, we're not a workforce training group, but we definitely saw a disconnection between how workforce was working with our existing companies, even the ones we were helping. And we just looked at some of the basic things that are happening, like your congressman's job fair. And who is there? Is it FedEx, UPS, maybe it's Chevron? Good companies, they have good wages, but you know, in the first slide I showed you 82% of your manufacturers were small businesses. They don't have time to go to job fairs. So we were literally coming up with a model where we combine several employers who work together and send one representative to a job fair. And maybe they're looking to fill 6 jobs, but those are neighborhood jobs. Those are small business owned jobs. Those are jobs in the promise zone. And where we had the job fair was very important, and I toured some, and it's nice to go to the airport. It's great to go to a lot of the locations. We have one African American university. It's also in our 500 acres. That's where we're having our job fair. You can bet on it. And that is, I think it's the only one that they had. It was the only one that they've ever had that connected with neighborhood businesses. So it's, for me, it's been a lot of thinking about, understanding the disconnection and then looking at and seeing where is it not happening and why is it not happening in the neighborhood. I don't know if I ever need to be moving the needle, in the data, and I don't know working at this level if it can be measured, but we do like that we have, leveraged the report and the methods and taking them further and identified the funding sources from them. And this morning we were just named as one of the opportunity zones under the new CDFI policy. So I was very happy to hear that. So we know that there's more tools. So for a community development corporation, at our level, about half of our effort is shifted away from housing. We still do a lot of housing. We're doing some transit-oriented development housing right now. But we've gotten passionate about the industrial development and the different channels where, we can work as an organization, work on a little bit of policy, a lot of education, and maintain that visibility in the community. And hopefully can get other CDCs to follow suit. It's, again, I'll go back to what Mayor Turner said. It's, you're not getting equity just out of doing housing. And I know one of our criticisms in our market from HUD is all Indianapolis does is housing. It's all they do with their HUD funds. So, that shift as well has been, a little difficult for a community. So, so the last thing I want to leave you with here locally is if you see your community development corporations out there, really bring them into the table. They're going to resist, just like I did initially, because they are probably feeling maxed out with what they're doing now. But there is, there's room for them to grow, and it is good, it is good work and work that's needed in the community. And as of today, there are very limited groups on the ground that can buy industrial property as a nonprofit and connect with the community. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Again, I've already introduced one of my colleagues. I want to take this opportunity to introduce another one. She's also a champion for education, my good friend, which I'm very envious because, yes, the mayor said TXRX is in her district, and I want it in mine. So I think next year we're going to annex this piece of property into District B, Councilmember System. Come on up. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to hear so many speakers talk about education and how to address equity all along the way. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I studied environmental science. I have a master's degree in architecture, and then I became a classroom teacher, early childhood, and I served on the school board, and now I'm on city council. And all of those things, they sound really different, but they all come together into this job that I have right now. They're all very important to me and drive what I do. So to hear people, so many people talking about the importance of education and in this pipeline, to jobs is just makes my heart sing. Because not everyone always understands that strong connection. I represent what began as an industrial part of town. The neighborhoods evolved around the port and around the rail yards, and then as times changed and as industry changed, a lot of those families were sort of left behind as the jobs moved away, and they are still there. And generations later, those families are still there. And so we've got
we've got some crumbling infrastructure. You know, in places that used to be, you know, more actively manufacturing things, we've got warehouses, and we've got opportunity. We've got and a lot of work to do. Economic development is so connected to the development of our human capital. TXRX is in the second ward, I'm thrilled to say, but that, you know, the whole part about, you know, the job training and workforce development really begins with the education pipeline and the ability to nurture, you know, a homegrown talent. So here in Houston, 70% of all the children under the age of 20 are African American or Latino kids. And fewer than 10% of the African American and Latino kids that take the SAT are passing with high enough scores to be successful in college. As an educator, I will tell you that providing guidance and support and planting those seeds early is important. You know, I appreciate all, and I value, I know how important it is at every step along the way to be able to intervene and to give opportunities and support. You know, and even beyond when people get out of school and, you know, or need, you know, a second chance. But the realities really couldn't be more stark, because it's impossible to imagine a successful vision of Houston without the success of these African American and Latino children. Our diversity here in Houston is really one of our best strengths. It's an asset that's crucial to the success of Houston. And as Houston moves forward and pursues its role in, you know, with in manufacturing and innovation, it's important to be mindful about this important connection to children. A point that I'd like to make, and in case you're not already aware of it, is that it's the very earliest years that are the most important. The years 0 to 3, which falls outside of most programs, is profoundly the most impactful and predictive years in an individual's life, and how they will be successful, a successful adult in the workforce. So just as we're going on, I hope anyone who has any connections to supporting high-quality child care, early child care for low-income Latino and African American working families, that is a powerful, powerful investment in our future workforce, and it gets huge returns. My point is that the gaps and the disparity that all of us are talking about begin very, very early on. That is when each human brain has the greatest potential. Access to opportunity, access to good jobs in manufacturing, in technology and innovation begins right there. Intervention opportunities and targeted support at any age, you know, are for people of color who are not connecting with the, you know, these opportunities is important. But getting the help early on in life gets the best results and is the very best investment. Sorry. I want to give a very warm welcome to Dave McFadden from the Port of Seattle and Washington State. Welcome to Houston. I'm looking forward to hearing you, and we have some similar things going on here that you've been dealing with, and we're looking forward to you sharing those with us. Dave is the Managing Director of the Economic Development Division for the Port of Seattle and has spent his career building local economies and promoting sustainable economic development. He has wide-ranging know-how in the areas of business development, city planning, workforce development, tourism, real estate development, and public relations. He aims to bring middle-class jobs to the Washington State region, and his portfolio includes recruiting, retraining, retaining businesses in aviation, manufacturing, and maritime sectors, along with real estate, long-term leases, innovative property development, the small business incubator and accelerator initiatives, marketing, tourism, and workforce development. I was really pleased to see this part too in your bio about promoting environmental sustainability and responsibility. and that you are a former school board president and workforce development leader, that you're driven to ensure that the region educates its youth so that they realize great career opportunities in the future, and that you believe that countrywide prosperity and advancing the interests of disadvantaged communities is how we move forward. Let's welcome Dave McFadden.
Good afternoon. Delighted to be here. Boy, we do have a lot in common. I am from Seattle. I'm a lifelong person from the Northwest, but I've been here a few times, and I really enjoyed just getting out and walking around this morning. Your city's changing. I think it's got tremendous opportunity. And I think we're talking about the right issues of the day here today. I've been in economic development all my life, but I don't think we have a jobs problem anymore. We do have a jobs problem, but it's more about equitable development. It's about filling the jobs with communities that need the jobs. And we have an enormous opportunity to do that, but that work is not going to be easy, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So I'm going to tee it off and just give you a sense of who the Port of Seattle is, give you a sense of our history, talk a little bit about our own equity work, but then drop back and talk about some of our lessons learned, and even talk about some things in the future that we're just beginning to understand and realize now. So with that, you know, Port of Seattle is not new. It's over 100 years old. Seattle has had two booms. We're having a boom now, and we had a boom during the Klondike Gold Rush. And it was at that time you saw our harbor look like this, with trains just going in every direction and monopolies literally developing on the waterfront that really were restricting our trade and our future growth. And so early boosters during this time, which was early 1900s, in the fair city of Seattle, which had a lot of growth opportunity, were being actually held back by these private interests. So port districts were imagined as public municipal governance that could take over and kind of channel and shape that waterfront for the public interest. And so really it was being held back that prompted the region to create a port district, and we've been going for over 100 years since that time. So, as I said, we're created to control the waterfront. We're the 4th largest container port in the United States now, so we ship a lot of containers all over the world, both coming in and out. We're home to the Alaska fishing fleet. We have the largest cruise port on the West Coast, and yes, we have a lot of real estate. We own the airport, and the airport is, I believe, the 8th or 9th largest airport in the country now, and is growing like a juggernaut, if you will. And so we also reflect our region, which is growing like a weed. And so as we look at that, Seattle is the crane capital of the United States. We've, in the downtown alone, developing 15 million square feet of office. That includes 12,000 condos, all these apartments. We've had just amazing growth in the Seattle region. 200,000 jobs since the recession. As I said, we don't have a jobs problem, we have an inclusive problem. And what I want to say at the end is, yeah, for us, HQ1 is still unfolding. Amazon still has thousands of openings, mostly new jobs. They have been at the front of this growth curve. And everybody, while they're chasing after HQ2, I want you to be careful about that. I know that some of you were disappointed about that down here in Houston, but the tale I am telling here is while that brings enormous energy to your area, it also can create some major issues that need to be addressed. And we're still digesting that growth. If you just look at Amazon alone, 6 million square feet of office space in downtown Seattle alone. So just, it's a huge mushroom cloud. But I would agree with Eric, it's not really where the economy is. It's not a good economic development strategy. I would agree with Jerry Davis, work with what you've got already. You're going to gain far more beneficial and sustainable development by looking inward. Yes, other companies will come in. You want to be open for business and certainly entertain new companies, but your real sustainable and effective economic development is going to start right here in your own communities. So with that, let me talk a little bit about the challenges, because as much as we're one of the fastest growing cities in the nation, we've got an aging workforce. You know, I would say probably 2/3 of the engineers at Boeing, which has been our economic mainstay until Microsoft and Amazon, are within 10 years of retirement. And I think it could probably look into any of your advanced manufacturing or industrial companies and see the same exact thing. We have an aging population. Everybody knows about the baby boomers. We're retiring every day, and it's going to continue for the next 10 years. And it's not real clear where that next generation is going to come from to fill all those jobs, or really to create our workforce energy we need for the future. So we also have one of the worst traffic problems in the nation. And finally, we lost 29,000 middle-class jobs during the last recession. We have not recovered those. So we are less, we're more have and have not in Seattle than we ever have been before. Challenges. So at the port, we're government. We generate $600 million of revenue in a year. So we got enterprises. We run an airport. We run busy container ports. So we make money. But we're not about making money. We're about making a difference in the community. So we want to use our influence to both promote small business, workforce development, and be sustainable all at the same time. And so as you can read down that slide, we actually are using our property tax levy, that's our source of taxes beyond the revenue we earn, to invest in a variety of sustainability, workforce, and small business initiatives. And so I'll talk a little bit more about those in detail. So, especially in the last 5 years, as Seattle has boomed, the Port of Seattle has gotten more and more focused on equitable development. And I just mentioned a variety of things we're doing, but I'd ask, I'm going to talk about a Maritime Innovation District, our work to protect industrial lands, our diversity and contracting policies, and a whole number of other new policies that we're really putting on the books to address this need for equity and inclusion. As I said, we are booming, so our employment rate's probably about 3% right now. We have critical shortages, especially in the construction trades. So one of the things we did a couple months ago is we joined forces with the City of Seattle and King County to invest a couple $1 million in the construction trades pipeline. We're contracting with the Urban League to do outreach into our disadvantaged neighborhoods to pull the potential latent workforce out of that community and get them into those pipelines. Then they'll go in and do pre-apprentice training with like the iron workers and the other folks building these projects. We have a deficit of several thousand construction workers in our region right now. That's why everybody's working overtime. So there's a huge ramp-up opportunity, but it's really focused on recruiting women and people of color in the trades, and we have to provide what I call those wraparound services to make sure they not only get in the program, but stay in the program until they matriculate out. We're also developing aviation career pathways training to try and move our lower wage workers at or near the airport up the ladder so they can start creating the pipeline and moving others into behind them. Maritime careers are important. The term I think is really, that we're using a lot is just career connected learning. How do we move back into the pipeline, into the earlier grades to make sure our kids gain exposure to careers in the world of opportunity? I think if we wait until high school, it's too late. It's a sad day when a kid discovers they want to go into marine engineering and realize they should have taken algebra 3 years ago. And so that planning, that advancement where you're getting into kids talking about careers, but through probably 5th grade through 9th through 12th, doing a whole variety of stepped initiatives so they build a cumulative experience and awareness towards the world of work is really where we're focused. And really this, I think, is the best graphic for the construction pipeline. This is the state of our apprenticeship program. And so you have 1,500 people entering, and by the time they get through year 5, almost none of them get done with the program. Only 40% graduate to journey status. You can see the retention rates for people of color and women. This is exactly the type of investment we're making to try and turn that tide and turn up the energy to get more people into these skilled jobs. You can see lots of job opportunities if we do this right. The board's also put a major emphasis in diversity in contracting. Our new policy really puts emphasis on supporting women and minority business enterprise in specific. We realized we had disparities. We were not at the same level of participation in small business, especially our disadvantaged business, compared to other local governments. We knew we could do better, and we had to basically establish a new policy and set a new goal to triple those outcomes. Not just the dollar spend, but also the number of disadvantaged businesses participating. So it really builds off our long-standing initiative for small business, but puts more focus into those areas that need the most attention. We're also working on a maritime innovation district, protecting manufacturing and sustaining it. We've heard a lot about that. The board, that is who we are in essence. So this is very important. We need to really be a gap filler, both by building some space, but also supporting innovation in this space. This is a 45-acre industrial site in the middle of Seattle that we have sat on for 2 generations. It has not been touched. And so it's a huge opportunity. It's our Brooklyn Naval Shipyard. And so as we go, we're going to build it out. We're going to work with partners to also explore food incubation, construction trades incubators, and really use our land base and our real estate to support some of the activity that I just mentioned, whether it's a maker space or, again, an incubator. We did look a lot at housing. We do not have statutory authority to do housing under our state law, but ironically, over on the side of this, we figured out that we're able to lease our land, and so we have a homeless camp on part of our land in a partnership with the city. That's not something we would normally do, but I'm just sharing with you that homelessness is a crisis in Seattle. It's a crisis in Seattle, and so we have to figure out a way to not just, get people under a roof, but also address longer-term affordable housing issues. Very proud of our environmental sustainability initiatives. Really, our goal is to get all of our energy in the future, either through conservation and renewable sources. We've done a whole variety of things at the airport. You won't find anything that isn't, environmentally friendly, whether it's a utensil you're eating with or a drinking straw, which is no longer plastic. And above and beyond those things that we do operationally, we're also sitting with the city, the county, trying to protect those industrial land uses. Zoning code, those things that Eric mentioned are really incredibly important to retain the fabric of your manufacturing community. And then finally, we are in the parks business. So when you're on the waterfront, you want to do any development, you're also going to do community development. So we own 40 acres of parks. For us, it's about quality jobs. We also have a variety of policies when we're building things like project labor agreements. We use that on all our major construction projects. That means we're going to be a good partner with labor. To add to that, we have a priority hire policy that when we build those projects, we're going to make sure we hire workers from the economically distressed zip codes first. And so the quality jobs policies we have make sure that people that need the work are going to get the work. And we also just basically said, if you're going to work at a port facility, you're going to earn a decent wage. So $15 an hour is our minimum wage in Seattle, and that is our standard as a baseline for all our employment at port facilities. And so for our next horizon, I just drew this shot out of the past because, yeah, it's a Seattle brew. There was Native American tribes that were displaced. 100 years later, we're going back into that Duwamish River Valley and working on an environmental justice project with the Native tribe, but also all the, what I'd say, largely disenfranchised neighborhoods that have been right amongst our port operations. These neighborhoods are heavily impacted by environmental pollution and poverty. If you go from this neighborhood, which I just described, to a neighborhood of affluence 10 miles away, or even 5 miles away, the life expectancy difference is 10 years. So this is what equity is about long term, is how you set the bar to equalize those outcomes over the long haul. And so we're learning a lot about that and realizing that this is difficult. It's easier to go out and bring a new smokestack in or do the traditional economic development. It's much harder to connect the community into the benefits of that process. But it does start with community. It starts with a sense of who you're made of, you know, all parts of the community, not just some parts of the community. And so placemaking, this workforce development, small business, manufacturing, retention are really important in this day and age. And I say it really starts with effective community engagement. You have to go to the neighborhoods, you know, where the problems are. You have to get the conversation started. You have to empower the neighborhood residents to be at the table and create the strategies that are going to really help them benefit and grow into the future. So we're learning a lot about that, and what we've learned is, no, we don't have meetings at our offices and hope they come. You've got to go out into the community and really listen to where the people are living in the beginning. So I really thank you. I urge patience. We're learning a lot as our community grows. We've got a lot of problems that come with that growth. It's a really interesting time. We feel like we're an anchor institution, and you have a lot of anchor institutions, and I think we all need to lead and step up, working together to really address the problems of equity in our community. I really appreciate being here. This is a great conference. Thanks for having me. And I look at the glass half full. I see our kids down there, and I go, if we can do right by them, this city and all our cities will be in great shape. So thanks again.
I understand the conference, but it seems like every time someone gets up, it seems like the city of Houston's losing out on something. And especially in Seattle, we lost our #2 guy in the airport, Lance Little. He's now the, look at you. Thank you. Appreciate it. And you also tell Bruce Harrell, I said hello, you city councilman out there. They're doing great work out in that area. Okay, but we're not losing out. We're not losing out. We're doing great things in Houston, and I want to take a point of personal privilege to introduce a good friend of mine, Mr. Gordon. Gordon, say hello. He's founder of Cruising. It's a social travel platform founded again by Mr. Gordon Taylor. Born and bred in Houston, all right? And the mission is to connect travelers one experience at a time. Also, they're a great example of innovation and tech born in Houston. About 6 months ago, Cruising they turned down capital from Boston investors to stay in Houston. So I want to say thank you so much for all the work you're doing. Feeling good again. Also, right here in our backyard, we have Mr. Thomas Fields, the founder and CEO of Grind, a sports tech startup that is creating opportunities and transforming the way athletes practice. So I'm just recovering from my Achilles tendon surgery. 2 screws in there, so I'm gonna need one of these rebounders so I can get back in the game and start playing basketball again. But come on up. He's developing the first portable basketball rebounding machine. Grind aims to streamline professional training, so that's why I need him. And be the Peloton of basketball. Thank you so much, sir.
Cool. You guys hear me? How you guys doing today? Good. Well, cool. It's great to be here. Before I get started, I kind of like to highlight the beautiful discussion around equitable innovation and how TXRX has kind of been at the forefront of making it accessible to people that were in my position. So first off, coming from a lower middle class family in the inner city of Houston, I ultimately understand what it's like to work hard, and luckily TXRX allows innovation to be accessible to individuals like myself. So ultimately, about 3 years ago, I founded a company called Grind, and we had the goal to create products that transform and optimize the way athletes practice. Right. So as a high school basketball player, I found it very hard to get to a Division I college without one of these great machines that allowed me to shoot up to 1,200 shots an hour. Right. I was stuck in the backyard. Coach wouldn't open the gym for me, and these machines are about $5 grand, right? About $5 grand, and they're about 400 pounds. So buying one of these things from a lower middle class family didn't make sense, right? So I came up with the idea to design it for myself, right? Kids that were in my position. Kids that couldn't afford a $5,000 machine like Justice Winslow that was down the street from me. But kids that didn't have a gym at the back in the back of their house, right? So we basically redesigned this product, 12-foot tall, 400-pound machine to fit inside of a duffel bag, right? And basically streamline professional training through this device to every kid's backyard, right? So that's ultimately Grind's purpose, Grind's mission, and we're actually flying out to San Francisco to raise some capital. Right, we've been trying very hard in Houston, but we're definitely hanging on to TXRX, making sure that we bring back all the innovation to our communities. But ultimately, I think it was great what Mr. McFadden said about connecting our communities. I believe that Grind has ultimately built a brand that can communicate to young individuals like myself. Right, District B, District H, all the kids, all the minorities that have never been introduced to technology, to tech, to computer vision, to machine learning, to building apps. And Grind will not only build world-class products for athletes, but ultimately we plan on using Grind as a vehicle to get into the minds of the next generation, to build equitable innovation in the city of Houston, where we come from. I think Grind represents Houston. The name represents us perfectly. We get through the struggle, we get through it in a great way. Lastly, I again like to thank TXRX for allowing us to build a product from the ground up and allow us to be successful. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Brandy Lira, proud principal of Eastwood Academy High School. Our modest campus hosts the only high school level cybersecurity program in the region and is home to a successfully innovative engineering program. Tucked away in Southeast Houston, our growing family can be found at the 23rd spot amongst the top 100 best schools in the nation. Over the years, Eastwood has grown exponentially and is recognized by the community to be one of the premier schools of choice within the Houston Independent School District. We're often referred to as the jewel of the East End. And with this nickname comes an 18-year history of educating and serving low-income Latino families from surrounding urban neighborhoods. We are a diverse, family-oriented campus with an impressive record of producing first-generation graduates and collegians. It is my distinct honor to introduce you to our students who have worked so diligently to create the projects you will see here shortly. It is through the partnership with TXRX that these innovative hands-on learning experiences are available to students like mine. 4 of these students, Luis, Margarita, Judith, and Angeles, have all been accepted to the University of Houston, where they plan to study engineering. Angie has been accepted to Rice University on a full paid tuition. Kindly help me in welcoming our students to the stage.
Good evening. So before I start, I wish to take this opportunity to thank you for attending the Equitable Innovation Conference hosted by TXRX Labs. To introduce myself, my name is Luis Rojas and I am currently a senior at Eastwood Academy and I plan to pursue a career in mechanical engineering at the University of Houston. So for the past 2 years, I've actually had the opportunity to attend one of the best programs here at Easton, and it's notably TXRX. TXRX Lab is, I've been in this program known Make It a Market, which is an expansion program that allowed me to attend this program through a connection through my school in my engineering pathway. So what is Make It a Market, you ask yourself? Make It a Market is a collaboration through TXRX which allows you to go attend workshops and partners with school in the area of East and Houston. The experience has provided me with the wealth of knowledge including laser cutting, 3D printing, and powerful software programs such as Fusion 360 and RDWorks. Our instructors has helped us out throughout this process to learn the design process, which is similar to the engineering design model. That has allowed us to, in summary, understand, explore, reflect, and refine our projects. After learning the process, our entire team has developed projects through brainstorming, to designing, to redesigning, and to finally have ready to create for final production. But beyond all these things that I've learned, I've noticed that I love hanging out at TXRX. Right after school, I dedicate my own time to go attend workshops and learn for myself and use the machines just to play around with them and create things. For example, like I've made this beautiful, not me specifically, but I've made these type of projects, and from the first day I've attended, I noticed that they have treated me like family. They've actually taken the opportunity to introduce me to all the actual places they've seen, and it's actually a wonderful location, and y'all must visit it. I recommend it so much. And before I say anything else, I just want to say one thing, and that I want to thank my wonderful mentor. His name is Joseph. If you could stand up, please. Because of him, I've actually been able to do all these wonderful things. If it wasn't for him actually getting on me and trying to say, oh, do this the professional way, don't do this the amateur way. Because of him, I was able to do all these wonderful things, and I'm actually very thankful, and I cannot thank you enough. But in conclusion, the last 2 years has allowed me to marry the skills and knowledge that has provided me from TXRX to my own school, and it has allowed me to connect those skills and be able to spread them out and be able to create this project that has helped the community itself. And the overall takeaways from the last 2 years are enormous, but I would most importantly say that the most important ones that I believe is truly important are teams management, time management, material usage, marketing skills, and communication. This in itself will provide me an outstanding foundation for my next step to study mechanical engineering. And I want to thank you so much. Once again, thank you for attending the conference. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angie Estrada. I am a current senior at Eastwood Academy, and I'm planning on studying computer science and engineering at Rice University this upcoming fall. For the past year, I had the pleasure to be a part of the TXRX Maker to Market program, which is an after-school program that strives to bring knowledge about a variety of tools and programs such as Inkspace, laser cutting, 3D printing, to an array of students from the East End area. The program consists of two main aspects. One, the maker aspect, which teaches students how to use tools and machines available at TXRX, and two, the market aspect, which focuses on commercializing your products and teaching you how to manage products and start your own business. TXRX has given me the opportunity to learn a lot of skills that I've been able to use in my day-to-day life. One aspect which has been really helpful, which is in my capstone project, which is a project that's given to all the seniors in the Eastwood engineering pathway, in which they have to incorporate a type of engineering into their own project. For my capstones, my teammates and I decided to combine our artistic views with our passion of engineering, from which we came up with the idea of redesigning and customizing household lamps, which will be made using 3D printing and laser cutting. The techniques that we were able to learn in class brought to life our designs and all our creativity that we brought together. The projects such as laser cutting and the environment, 3D printing jewelry, and screen printing t-shirts enabled us to master Fusion 360, which is a platform in which we're able to make 3D models. Through the construction of our projects, we face a lot of challenges, such as setting up the laser printers, how to make plywood curves on laser curves, and how to troubleshoot programs and fix the signs. But through the Maker to Market program, we were able to overcome all these challenges. On the week coming up to the submission of our project, we went back and forth between TXRX and our school, reprinting, remaking, redesigning. And through all of this, the TXRX members received us with open arms and helped us in every way that they could by answering questions that we had and going over the setup with us, making sure that we set up the machines right. For this and the opportunity they have given to us through the Maker to Market program, we are really grateful. Thank you.
I want to thank the students and the principal for coming out today. Just want to let you know you will have competition next year, okay? Because I'll tell you, Wheatley High School is getting ready. Yes, Wheatley High School in 5th Ward, we're getting ready to have one. Also, Fleming Middle School, NACU, Henderson Elementary, and Bruce Elementary. That's the commitment from the council member of District B going into TXRX, and I'm gonna tell you, you gotta tell me what the sign stands for, okay? Because I really don't understand the sign. But anyway, it's a great sign. It's real cute. That's all it is about marketing. It's like it makes you remember, okay? And I can remember it, and I get it. So I don't get it, but I like it. But anyway, again, Fleming Middle School, NACU, Henderson, and also Bruce Elementary. We're going into with TXRX next year. We're doing two elementaries in the middle school. And so y'all make sure you come back and get schooled, but also make sure you come back and help these kids so they can be successful because you have a great story. So now it's time for the audience participation. Please turn to the last page of your program where you will see the topics for the breakout session. I ask that you choose one of the topic groups to participate in. The feedback ideas and input that we gather today in these break sessions will be informing a policy brief compiled by the Urban Manufacturing Alliance. Again, your input, okay, you've been here all day, all right, don't leave. Let us hear back from you. Let's hear from you. You've got some information, you have your own thoughts, let's mingle them together in these breakout sessions, and as they write and compile the information, it's necessary for people like me who only look at it from one perspective. And as we get ready to make policy, we like to hear from you. So signs are up. The topics placed in this room. Where are the signs? Where the signs? Signs upstairs. Okay. So you have youth education, job training, resource, and small urban manufacturers and physical innovation. Upstairs in room 201. We will have breakouts for land use, real estate, capital assets, and inclusion economic development. We set aside some time, about 40 minutes or so. When you're up in the room, great. When you finish, come down. Before 40 minutes, okay, come down, and we'll get back and do a Q&A so we can move forward. And I think we have coffee as well as pastries over here. So let's get moving. Don't clap, is that over? Just wait, okay? Come back. I'm here, you here. If y'all leave, I'm gonna have your cars booted, okay? Good. How you doing? Yeah.